Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. So nice to see you all again. Another Thursday, another stream. This time today with hopefully an interesting topic. I just need to quickly close a little tool. Yeah, because we'll dive into Next.js and TanStack start because I got asked quite a bit in my courses and X and YouTube which of the two to choose, which one's better. And today I'll try to find the answer or help you find the answer. And we'll do that by building two apps, one with Next.js and one with TanStack Start. And actually, it'll be the same app. Not a super complex one, I'll say that right away, because I only got around 2 hours as for all my streams. But we'll build the same app side by side, so to say, with Next.js and TanStack Start. And also a bit of AI to help me get through that, because 2 hours for an app, even though it's simple, can be quite ambitious. So yeah, that is what we'll do. So hi, everybody. Hello to everybody who's saying hi. Lovely to see you all here. And if you got any questions about Next.js, TanStack Start, or my opinion on the two, obviously ask them, but this stream, of course, should also help. Some theory first, because everybody loves theory. Let me quickly draw something here for Next.js and TanStack Start. Okay, that's maybe a bit too big. Let's go like this. Okay, so obviously these are both pretty popular frameworks, and most importantly, they're both full stack React frameworks. So that is, of course, something that is important to understand. Just in case that's not clear, we're talking about full stack React frameworks here, which means you build, guess what, full stack React applications with them. So that means client side, server side combined. You don't need either of the two if you just want to build a single page application. And I'm saying that here because I sometimes see the question if you should use React Router or Next.js, and that kind of makes sense nowadays because React Router can also be used as a full stack framework, but most people that ask this are talking about single page applications. And it's worth noting that neither of the two here, Next.js or TanStack Start, are necessarily a good choice for that, because if you just want to build a single page application, you can just create a React application with Vite, add React Router for routing, or add TanStack Router. So here I'm in the docs, because there actually are two packages, TanStack Start and TanStack Router, and they kind of work together, but you can use TanStack Router without TanStack Start. So TanStack Router would essentially be kind of the SPA solution if you use just that, and TanStack Start is then the full stack solution. So that is something that's worth noting here. And today we'll take a look at the actual framework, so full stack applications. Now, regarding the comparison, there are many dimensions you could compare, and we'll go through them automatically in this stream, and feel free to ask whatever comes to your mind. And I'm reading the chat. I'll get back to the questions soon, no worries. One thing you could compare, besides the technical stuff, of course, which we'll also see, is like the ecosystem. And how easy it is to use these frameworks from the ecosystem perspective. So how many resources are out there, and also important nowadays, how well does AI know about them? And of course, on that front, Next.js is better if that is the main thing you are interested in, because of course it's more mature and there are more resources out there about Next.js. And for example, AI knows a lot about Next.js out of the box. Not all of that is great, and not all of that is up to date, I will say that, but it does know a lot about it because, of course, it has seen a lot of repos out there that use Next.js during the training process. And for TanStack Start, that's not necessarily the case. That, however, is not necessarily a big issue because nowadays, of course, we got many ways of giving AI tools like Cursor or Claude Code the extra knowledge they need. You can manually copy and paste docs articles into your prompts, something which I really like to do. You can use MCPs like the Context 7 MCP, which is really amazing. I'm not a big fan of MCPs, but I will say the Context 7 MCP is pretty good. Essentially, that is an MCP that allows models to dynamically fetch documentation for many, many, many projects and libraries out there. So that is useful. And of course, then tools like Cursor or Claude Code can also do web search, so they can simply search for that doc. So there are ways of making that available. Still, you will find more resources, more tutorials and courses if you're interested in that for Next.js. Before I continue, there is a question, which tool am I using for the presentation? So this Canvas app here, this drawing app, is an app I'm building. It's not released yet, but I will release it soon, hopefully. And then you can use it for free, this same mode I'm using here. So I'll then link it below future videos whenever that is done. And then this nice app for drawing these arrows, that is not an app by me. Instead, that is this app here, Demo Pro, which I got many years ago. It's a Mac OS only app, I think, and it's really nice for drawing on the screen. So that's what I'm using here. As a beginner, are Next.js and TanStack Start alternatives to Nuxt? Yes, they are for the React ecosystem, though, or not though, but it's worth noting that TanStack Start is actually not just React, but can also be used with Solid.js. Not sure. Solid.js, I don't even know where in their docs I could here. Yeah, so you could use it with Solid too, but I don't know if it's totally equal regarding the features that are supported. I've only used it with React. Okay, so that's the first dimension here, the ecosystem. Another one you could look at is maybe the ease of learning or ease of use. And again, you can always argue if that is super important nowadays, because clearly we got AI, of course, so that might not be too important, you could argue. But then again, I would argue it makes sense to understand the code you are writing or generating. And here, I'd say Next.js, it's easy to get started, but I would say it's kind of hard to master it. And for TanStack Start, it's the opposite, I will say. At least it was for me. I found it a bit harder to get started with TanStack Start, but once you got the hang of it, it's actually easier. So they are equal for me for different reasons. And by the way, this, of course, is all very subjective here. This is absolutely not the only way of looking at it. That's just my way. And one reason why I found TanStack Start a bit harder to get started with is that the documentation used to be not that good, and nowadays it definitely is better. Still not perfect, I'd say. It can be a bit chaotic if you like go through it. Feels a bit like a brain dump still, but it got better, way better. The search also got way better. It used to find all kind of stuff if you searched for a server function, for example. Now it's a bit more helpful, so that is definitely way easier. On the other hand, Next.js, oh, I already got it here, I think. Next.js, the documentation, well, maybe just because I'm used to it, but I found it pretty well structured. You can move through it pretty smoothly, and a lot of stuff makes sense. But Next.js has a lot of hidden and not so hidden complexity. The entire caching stuff can be totally overwhelming, and it got better, I think. There's less magic going on. It used to be pretty hard to understand when components would get cached, and most importantly, there used to be quite a lot of differences between running your app in development and in production. That meant you always had to kind of test it in production, and you should always test it in production before shipping to production, but you had to constantly do that. to rule out issues, essentially, because things would load and update in development but not in production, and that could be super annoying. That got a bit better, but still, you got a lot of directives and stuff. You got use server, use client, use cache, and some people absolutely hate this. I'm not one of them, but I will say that it can definitely be confusing once you dive in a bit deeper. That said, I have a Next.js course. If you go to my website, academind.com, under courses there is a Next.js course. It's up to date for this, for the app router and all that, and you can use that. So just a little bit of promotion for that. Got no TanStack start course yet. Maybe I'll create one. We'll see. Okay. Also, because I saw it, there are some messages in the chat that Remix is not included or Next is not included, and that is all true. Essentially, I have 2 hours, so I have to kind of limit it, and I wanted to do this build one app with 2 technologies thing, and if I also add Remix, so React Router, and Next, and then maybe also SvelteKit, that kind of gets a bit too complex. And the truth is that Next.js in the React world is simply the biggest, the most important framework, you could say. It's AI's darling. The default apps you get with AI are typically React, Next.js, Tailwind, and so on. And TanStack Start has a lot of hype right now on X, on YouTube to some extent, and that is why I'm looking at these 2. That does not mean that Remix, Next, and all the others are bad, just to be very clear. Okay. What I don't like about TanStack, it does not have a view option. That's true, but Next.js doesn't have that either. Yeah. So I was just researching. I see my favorite tutor covering this. Oh, that's too kind. How do you remember and keep so many technologies in your mind? I don't keep them in my mind. Regarding Next.js and TanStack, I just used to work a lot with them. I mean, TanStack Start, I built my graphic site, which I have mentioned it here and there already. I will not bore you with more promotion, but I have built stuff with it that I also shipped, and also with Next.js. So it's not like I'm using all these frameworks all the time and I know them all by heart. That's not true. Yeah. So yeah, we're going to build one app with both frameworks. And I'll try to remember to add more to this comparison, but I don't want to bore you with too much theory, so let's get started. Oh yeah, one thing that's worth mentioning, of course, is that TanStack Start, it's hidden behind the chat here, but it's in RC right now, so release candidate. It's not stable yet. Not a lot should change about it, but for example, it doesn't have React Server component support yet. Not sure if that will come before it's stable, and not sure if you need it. But yeah, that's worth noting. It's in release candidate phase. Okay, so what are we going to build here? Don't I use VS Code anymore? I'm switching all the time. Also for course purposes, right now I'm using Cursor, and I will use Cursor today. Yeah, and so that we can actually see how it's different regarding the syntax and code, we'll build an app, as I mentioned. And what will we build? We'll keep it simple. We'll build a note-taking app. And I know you're now all basically going crazy due to all the excitement. What could be more exciting than a note-taking app? Of course, it'll be a CRUD app in the end, but hear me out. We got 2 hours. I want to compare them, and a note-taking app allows me to include a bunch of stuff that I want to have in there. Essentially, the idea is that we will have authentication. We'll add authentication using BetterAuth. And then we'll allow users to take and manage and view notes. So it will be, of course, a CRUD app. It's nothing more than that. It's just a CRUD app, but of course, it will allow me to show a bunch of features here. And for taking the notes, I want to have a rich text editor, and we'll use TipTap for that. That's the plan. I have not built that before. We'll see if we can get it done in the 2 hours, because of course I'll be talking, explaining, and I want to do it in both frameworks. But that is the plan, and we'll use some friendly AI support here so that we hopefully can get this done quicker or maybe not at all. We'll see. Okay, so that is what we'll build. With that, I'm already in a folder, empty folder right now, and I want to create both projects here. And I'll do that with help of the official docs. So for Next.js, we'll create a new app with bun. I'll use bun. So essentially these commands here, bun create, next app at latest. And I'll name it next app or next nodes. And I'll use the defaults, which you see it is TypeScript, ESLint, Tailwind, app router. That sounds good. I'll use that. And I'm using bun here for the installation, for running it, simply because it's a bit faster, especially for all the package management stuff. But of course, you can use node as well. Okay, so now I can navigate into next nodes here. We can run the dev server, but I'll do that in my IDE later. First, I'll get out of there and we'll create our TanStack start application. Getting started, no quick start. And I'll also use bun for that. So bun create at TanStack/start latest, and I'll have my TanStack nodes here. And TanStack start by default right now, when you run this command here, when you run this command here, will also create a project with Tailwind and TypeScript and so, by the way. So let me now open that in Cursor. As I mentioned, that is my plan. So 1 second. Where is it? Here it is. That is the Next.js. The Next.js application. Hello. The next. Can I drag you over, please? Thank you. The Next.js application here in Cursor. And then in a separate window, I'll open up the next TanStack, the TanStack nodes application in Cursor too. Okay. So got both the projects open here, and we'll do some switching here. So yeah, sorry about that. We'll have to switch around, but I want to have them in separate editors. Let's see, which questions do we have? Am I going to make, oh, thank you so much. We got a new followers goal. I didn't even know that I had that set up, but cool. How good is, no, sorry, what was the question? Why not create a poll to see what course your viewers would be interested? Oh, the thing is I have a good idea of what many people are interested in because I get requests all the time. Time is the only issue. And I'm always a bit hesitant to create polls because the winner then feels like I have to do the winner then. And if then something doesn't work out about that, I don't want to disappoint people. So that's why I'm not doing that. So what do we have? Yeah, how good is TanStack start for creating PWAs? I haven't done that yet, so I don't know, I have to admit. Am I going to make a TanStack course? Maybe. No, definitely something I would love to do. Time is the only issue. Am I planning a tutorial on model training and fine-tuning? Not in the very near future, I would say. Of course, all will be doing by hands, not the AI. Nope, I will definitely also use AI. Yeah, okay. Do you think Cursor is better for building apps than VS Code? Well, I think Cursor, the AI agent, the harness in which the AI models run, is pretty good. I think VS Code has caught up a lot. To be honest, I would simply use whatever works best for you. I mean, the best tool is just like the best AI model. It changes every week. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Okay. What do you think about Solid and Solid Start? It's been like 1.5 years since I last worked with Solid.js. I liked it a lot, but I haven't used Solid Start. Okay, let's get going. As I said, I will be using AI, but I'll not just use AI. And we want to have that notes taking app with authentication. And for authentication, I'll use BetterAuth because BetterAuth is an amazing library. Oh, by the way, because I forgot it, for the database, that will be SQLite. We'll use a SQLite database, and I'll use Bun's built-in SQLite capabilities. So BetterAuth it is for authentication because BetterAuth is pretty amazing. And one thing I'll try, and it has worked in the past, we'll see if it works today, is sidebar position to the right, okay. Is I'll use cursor here. So this is the Next.js application I'm in. I'll use cursor and I'll ask it to set up the authentication with BetterAuth for me. We're building a note-taking app and we need user authentication using BetterAuth already installed because I'll do that real quick. I'll add the BetterAuth package here. And then I'll say, please set up authentication via BetterAuth according to the BetterAuth docs for Next.js using SQLite because that's what we'll use. One thing I'll do real quick, I will actually go into app or actually outside of app, I'll add a lib folder. In there, I'll add a dbts file. And in there, I want to set up my database access so that the AI can use that. And I will use Bun SQLite, as I mentioned. Bun has that built-in SQLite client, or client is the wrong word. It's the entire database in the end, the way SQLite works. And that means we don't need to install an extra package since I'm using Bun anyways. And I'll just, well, copy this, though actually we don't need to do that. I guess we can just import, what is it? I keep on forgetting it. Import database from Bun and add the types for that to make TypeScript happy. And then I'll have my database, nodesdb sounds good. And I want to export that and create table if not exist nodes. Sounds reasonable, I guess. Oh, and it's Bun SQLite, of course. Yeah, okay. And that is run, I think. Okay, so that should give us a basic nodes table, and we'll store our content in there, which later will be some JSON coming from the tip tab editor. That is the plan. And I can copy that, of course, because I'll have the same over here in my in the TanStack start application. So there I'll also add types Bun, and I'll also add the BetterAuth package because we need authentication there as well. So that is the plan. In there, in that TanStack start application, I'll also clean up the demo routes and the data here, and I guess we can keep the component for now. Okay. Can you please explain the difference between TanStack Start and Next.js, why TanStack Start is better? TanStack Start is not better. And regarding the difference, that is essentially, we'll explore it together this stream. I already outlined some things here in this first basic comparison, and we'll kind of build up on that. And we'll just build both so that you can form your own opinion. There isn't a better or a worse choice. They're just different, and each has its advantages, as we will probably also see throughout this stream. Okay, so now we got the database handle set up here. Actually, I also want to run the pragma command here to use vol mode, which is better for performance for SQLite. And that should be good. So now back here in the Next.js application, I'll move my, thank you so much for the subscription. I'll move that chat over there again. So telling cursor to set up BetterAuth. Look up the BetterAuth docs for that. Use context 7 as a hint I give it so that it uses this context 7 MCP, which I'm using to look up the docs, hopefully, or web search. Use dbts for the database. And we'll use plan mode, and I'll copy that. And I'll do the same, of course, in the TanStack start application. paste it in there. We're building a note-taking app and we need to use user authentication. I'm not mentioning Next.js here, am I? I am for TanStack start. Yeah, and I'll let the AI plan that here too so that it sets up authentication in both. Do you have a free alternative to Cursor? Well, the expensive part is the AI, and that costs money everywhere, no matter which client you use. Okay. Vercel hosting is very expensive. Next is not scalable using a custom server. Well, that got a bit easier, I will say. Indeed, it's totally true that in the past, hosting Next.js outside of Vercel was pretty difficult or annoying or not straightforward at least. But they have actually quite good guides on their website now, the deploying guides, where they walk you through setting up, and I think there are more than that too, where they walk you through setting up Next.js on other pages as well, other hosting providers, including VPS and so on. So that got better, but I will agree it's definitely easier on Vercel, and that in turn can get quite expensive for sure. Yeah, okay, so what's the AI doing? We got a plan here. Let's see. I'm actually reading the plans. So libdbts, creating a auth server, libauth, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, it could just use the handle from the DB file. So use DB handle from dbts, don't set it up again. It's not a super important difference, but why not? Oh yeah, and one important thing I forgot, we will... No, it's fine. Email and password is fine. Okay. Add environment variable. Run database migrations. Okay, yeah, we'll see. That looks good. Let's take a look at the other plan here. Here it is importing my DB handle the way I want it. TanStack start cookies. Server handlers, that's looking good. I think it also wants to run the migrations here. We'll see. We'll see whether that works. Let it cook. Let it cook. What do you think about Convex? I just found out and I'm blown away. I know there's a lot of hype around Convex. I have to admit, I just haven't had the time to really dive into it yet, so I don't have an opinion. I will definitely take a look at it because so many people are so excited about it. So yeah, I'll see and form my own opinion. And thank you so much, Wise Boy, for the very nice message and for the sub. Means a lot to me. Thank you so much. Does the AI for Developers course have Claude Code? No, it's about GitHub Copilot and Cursor. Next changes caching every other month. Yeah, the caching part about Next.js, as I mentioned before, can be super frustrating. Okay, so now it's setting up a .env file for me here. Not a super big fan when AI does that, but it's fine here for me. I didn't have one anyways. Let's see if that migrate command works. Not in the sandbox, I guess. I don't recall whether the better off migration thing worked with bun. I thought there were problems with that. Yeah, I cannot find bun SQLite. So now it tries to generate a SQL file here. Yeah, that won't work. Let's see if it can figure that out. Same problem here, I guess. Yeah, so we can just watch AI fail here. And actually, instead of doing that, what I'll do is I'll quickly head over to BetterAuth, and there under, I think, database, they are clearly specifying the schema it needs in the database. So I will just copy that here. These are the tables BetterAuth needs with the columns it needs. So I'll say, here are the official BetterAuth docs on this schema. Use that and set it up manually in code. copy that, send that, and do that here too. Oh, I think here it actually did something. Here it actually, oh yeah, it found another way of migrating, I guess. Let's see. Let me switch that over so that we can see the file browser. So that's the TanStack project, and in there, it created this auth migrations TS file. So essentially it did that. Now I guess it just verified whether the tables are set up correctly. And it ran those manually, I think. Okay, so that should be fine. And in the Next.js project, it now adds them here to dbts, and therefore these tables will also be created whenever we start the app. So that should be working too. So with that, I can run my Next.js application here. And I think actually I should run that with -b to make sure that the bun runtime is being used. And then I can visit localhost 3000. That's the wrong port. That's my local app here. So let's set the port to 3001. And that is the Next.js application. And then here for for TanStack, I'll use 3002. What's that? What is this weird error? Is that maybe because I deleted something which I should have cleaned up? Let's see. One thing I should do here is I should set these scripts up like this. Okay, where's this error coming from? I swear to God, I work with TanStack Start all day in dozens of projects, and the moment I start streaming, I get some weird errors. But that's what we have AI for, right? I mean, it's really weird. One thing I also want to do here in the Next.js project, also there I want to ensure that I'm using bun for running these scripts. Because otherwise the runtime is not available and the SQLite database will not work. App config. Well, what's that about? Classic, yeah. Hi, Francesco. Yeah. I mean, you don't have me to believe me, but I've literally only worked with TanStack Start for the last weeks. And now I create a project with their command and I get some weird error. One thing I'll check real quick is the version. I have another project, as I just said. Which TanStack versions am I using there, and which maybe it's a broken new version or something like that. So oh, I guess we can also try bun update. Any old versions we logged in here? No changes? Huh. So that app config thing here, I don't know what that was about. You can mark. Dude. Okay, so one thing I'll do here, because I don't want to spend my day here on this, I'll just copy over some dependencies from my other project where it's working, where I'm using TanStack start, hoping that this will do the trick. And then we'll see, I guess. No, that's not it. Oh boy, I'll see. We will not even get one app done, will we? I mean, just to check this real quick, if I create a new project here, TanStack start, TanStack nodes 2. If I create a new project and I don't change anything about it, will that run? If it does, I'll just try to copy over the code and see when it breaks. So let's get into TanStack nodes 2 and bun run dev. That's the wrong port. Hello, or is it the port? Is that the problem? Shouldn't be though. Okay, so that seems to be working. So clearly I messed something up in code, I guess. Whatever that could be for that weird error. Whoops, that's the wrong route. Okay, that's the TanStack start project. Whatever, I don't know what's going on here. But what I do know is I'll just open this new project then, and I'll just copy over the code and hope that it doesn't break. Next TanStack nodes 2. Okay. And then let me grab the lib folder. Into the source folder, let's grab these API routes here, because these are the auth routes that we need. Let's get rid of the demo routes here. And let's see. Okay, now it started crashing again. What did I do that it started crashing? Cannot find module better off. Okay, that makes sense. That was a different error. Obviously, we need better auth. And we'll also need the bun types here. Okay, so now let's see. Okay, now it starts crashing again. TanStack start injected head scripts. Is that a better auth related error? What is going on here? What is going on here? Or is there an error in this file? No, this looks good. Does it work if I delete lib and the API routes? So the dev server is not running here. Let's now run it here. Bun run dev. I mean, that's the exact same setup I had in other projects. Okay, so now it's working. When does it crash? Does it crash if I add the API routes? I mean, there's an error in that file because the lib folder with auth is missing. So if I copy in the lib folder, is that when it starts crashing? No. Is it up and running? No. Yeah, this is now related to bun. And that is probably because I have to run this with bun run bun. But now I get this again. Oh, boy. I wanted this stream to be about a comparison and not about why setting up a project with TanStack start suddenly breaks after it worked before. Oh. Yeah. Okay. I'm very sorry about this. I did not see this coming. This is not a complex app, clearly. So, if it's related to the auth, I'll just do it without the auth. So I'll delete auth. I'll delete the auth routes. And I have TanStack start with auth running in other projects, but maybe it's a new, better auth version. I don't know. I want to continue. So yeah, we'll do it without auth. I'm sorry. We'll do it without auth, and that will have to do. So we have our database. We'll still use that, but there will not be authentication. And therefore, of course, I'll also remove it here for Next.js. I'm sure we could figure this out, but I don't want to bore you with me debugging some weird error and seeing if it's a better auth error or whatever. Okay, so that is that. How are things going for you? They're going great over here. So I guess we'll simplify the app we'll build. We'll build an app without authentication. Now, this was not the best start for TanStack Start, I will say that. And just to also be clear, the goal of this video is not to show you that TanStack Start is better or Next.js is better. Personally, despite what just happened, I really like TanStack Start a lot. As I said, I've been using it for plenty of projects, some released, some not, over the last 2 months. And I think it's amazing. The problem you just saw is a problem I never had before. And also, just to be clear, because there are always some people that think it's sponsored or something like this, this is not sponsored. This is my opinion. This is not sponsored. Yeah, so just to get that out of the way. First rule of programming, if the code works, don't touch it. True, and that's why I won't add authentication now. Okay, okay, we're 40 minutes into the stream, and we got essentially a basic Next.js and TanStack Start application set up. Let's see if the next step goes any better. I want an editor. We're building a note-taking app, right? So we need some routes. We need some routes in the Next.js application. I want my notes route with a page TSX file in there. And I want my editor route in there, which allows me to add new nodes, for example. And of course, I also want my detail route in there. So just to walk you through that, where is it? It's been some time since I last was in the Next.js documentation. So dynamic routes in Next.js are created by wrapping the route segment in square brackets. So I'll have my nested folder in there. Hello, can you please create a folder? Thank you. And that is my node ID. And in there, I also have page TSX. So that is the structure I want. I want a nodes route with all my nodes, an editor route for adding nodes, and an ID route for viewing a node. And I want the same here in TanStack Start. So in there, the routing is also a file-based routing by default. And you can also create subfolders. You can also create these flat files. So I could have nodes TSX and then nodes.editor TSX, and the dot here would be interpreted as a slash, but in my experience, this can cause some problems with nested routes, and I prefer having folders for routes anyways, so I will go with nodes and then an index TSX file in there. It's page TSX in Next.js, it's index TSX in TanStack Start for the main route under that segment, so under the nodes segment. And then I want to have an editor route in there with index TSX. And then I want to have my my nested route in there. And in TanStack, that's not square brackets for the dynamic segments. It's a $sign instead. So that would be my nested route. And instead of this, just to be clear, I said it before, I could have also created a file named node ID TSX with a $sign at the beginning in the nodes folder. And that would then give us nodes / and then the ID, and that would load that route. So yeah, that is that. That's the route structure I want to have here in this project. Now, what's interesting about TanStack Start is that when you create a new route file, you will see that it gets populated with some code, and that code is important. If you delete it, I think it comes back. Yeah, if I save the file, it comes back. You have your route component here. That's obviously where your, guess what, component, your markup goes. And then you have this create file route thing here. And here you can add stuff like a loader to fetch data that should be fetched before the route loads. You can do before load. That is where you could, for example, that is a function where you could check for user authentication before the route even loads and stuff like that. And in Next.js, that will be different. There you have nothing in that file right now. And there instead you the components you set up in there, in these route files, are React server components. So they're rendered on the server and you can fetch data inside of the components because they're guaranteed to only run on the server unless you add use client at the top of the file, which I don't. In TanStack start, we're not dealing with React server components, at least not right now. Server components are coming, but to me at least, it's not clear yet how they will be implemented. But these route files don't give you server components. So this component here will be pre-rendered on the server for every request, but it also then re-renders on the client. So it's not guaranteed to run on the server. And that's why in TanStack start, we don't put any server code into our component functions, and why we instead have this loader pattern, which you might also know from React Router, for example. So just to get that out of the way. So in my nice comparison here, I guess one thing we could add is the data fetching part. There for Next.js, we have RSC. So we can use React Server components. We can fetch right in the component. For TanStack start, we have normal components plus this loader pattern, or you could use effect. You can use TanStack query, of course. But that is how that would look like or work. Yeah, so that's that. I am adding a database. I'm using SQLite as a database. I got my database code here. I guess I can get rid of the auth tables now here in the Next.js app because we're not adding auth because something's broken about the better auth package in conjunction with TanStack start. So yeah, we'll do it like this. Okay, long story short. Now it's time to let AI do some work again. Because now I wanted to generate some dummy pages. So I'll say, this is, by the way, the TanStack app now. We're building a note-taking app using TanStack start. We need /notes page in, and then I'll just point it at this index file here in the notes folder. Set up some dummy page there that loads notes from the DB and renders a list of nodes in a beautiful design. We'll see what AI gives us here. Nodes should be links that take us to the node ID file route. Look up the TanStack start docs to learn how to use loader. So I'm pointing the AI that I want to use loader. I'm doing agentic engineering here. I'm not vibe coding. I'm telling the AI that I want to use this loader feature. And I'll tell it to use the context 7 MCP or web search to look up the docs. Also explore the docs for other concepts you might need. We use Tailwind for styling. Okay, so that's my prompt here. I'll let it create a plan. And then here in the Next.js project, I'll send the same. But of course, here we're building this with Next.js. And we don't have an index file here. Instead, here in this route, it's my nodes page TSX file that will render the nodes. I have my database file here, of course. And I want to go to the page TSX file in the node ID folder for the details. Look up the Next.js docs to learn how to use how to fetch data in a RSC. Okay, and that should hopefully do the trick. And let's see what AI gives us. For the design, Gemini may be better. That is possible. I hope Opus will give us something decent here, but we'll see. Now for the plan, that's the TanStack app here. A loader pattern, use loader data, that looks good. So it wants to add a node server TS file with a get nodes create server function. That's good. That is in TanStack start. I said that there are no React Server components in TanStack Start, but that components would be pre-rendered and that you can use the loader for fetching data. That is actually only part of the truth, because you can add loader, but this loader function which you define here will actually run on both the server side and the client side, because the page can update on the client side. That means that for data fetching, it's kind of bad if you want to put your database code into that loader function, because that can't really run on the client side because we're using bun, which is not available in the browser, and we wouldn't want it to run on the client side because we don't want to expose credentials if we had a database with credentials and so on. So the loader is only a part of the data fetching puzzle. The other part is that TanStack Start has server functions. And server functions are functions that are created with help of the create server function. That's a lot of functions by TanStack. So you create a function by putting it into this handler here, essentially, and then this code is guaranteed to only run on the server, even if you call it from inside a loader. So if I create a server function with create server function, and I then call this function here in a loader, then this function will be ignored. Not ignored on the client side, but the code will only end up on the server side. And on the client side, TanStack Start will simply send the HTTP request to the server side. It will create an endpoint for me behind the scenes, so to say. And on the server side, it will just directly execute it. So it will guarantee that the code in here will run on the server side. That's why it's good that in this plan, the AI correctly researched that we want to use create server function for our database code, using our database handler, which uses bun. And then it wants to use a loader. It mentioned that somewhere here. So that is looking good, I think. Seed some dummy data. I don't want that. I'll delete that. And yeah, let's build this. Looks good. For Next.js, we have the nodes file. Here we are in a server component. So it creates a helper function, get nodes. And then in the component, it calls that. And in Next.js, we can do that for the reasons I mentioned. And it then outputs this, because this React server component will only be executed on the server. So let's do that too. If wanting to try out new AI stuff, would you recommend starting out with Claude Code or Cursor? Depends on your level of knowledge. I would probably go with Cursor because it's an IDE and Claude Code is a command line tool only. And depending on your experience with command line tools, that can be overwhelming at first. You don't know the shortcuts and so on. So I think Cursor might be a bit easier there. Which one is better? Again, I did answer, and you won't get a better answer from me than there is no better one. It comes down to preference. Both are amazing. Next.js is better if you want the richer ecosystem, if you want the framework with more jobs, if you want the more established framework, because Next.js is older and has a bigger ecosystem and has more jobs. It can be slow. The caching can be confusing. I mentioned before that the learning curve for Next.js, it's a bit easier to get started with, and then it gets more complex. And for TanStack Start, I feel like it's the opposite. The learning curve is initially pretty steep, but it gets easier over time. But yeah, you won't hear a better or worse from me. Yeah. So I would really encourage you to take a look at both and find your own favorite. So now the Next.js application is done. So if I go to my running application, to the nodes page, I see no nodes yet, which makes sense. And the design is okay thus far. And how about TanStack? It's also done. So let's see if I go to /nodes here. Yeah, that looks a bit more basic. What's wrong here? Let me move this, the TanStack app here. I have an idea of what's wrong. Okay, my idea is wrong as it seems. maybe beautiful dark theme with amber accents. I mean, there are styles here. But they're not getting applied. So is Tailwind not being loaded? Style CSS. Oh, is this not using Tailwind? It used to use Tailwind by default. My bad. Did I create that in a different way? Because everything's going wrong suddenly? Okay, so I guess we'll just add Tailwind real quick. TanStack start, Tailwind. Let's just quickly go through these steps here. Yeah, I did not want to do that. Okay, so let's install bun install. Let's install Tailwind and add Tailwind plugin to the Vite config. No, not the function declaration. I want the import. Like this. Import into the CSS file. So into styles. Okay. And we are importing styles into root. So I think that should be it. If we now go back. Oh, if I restart the dev server, of course. If that's up and running again. Okay, now that looks better. Okay, an interesting choice. And to be honest, I'm not hating it, that it looks different than all the other AI apps. So yeah, fine by me. Now I want the AI to also work on the header. So let me bring that back over so that you can see it in the same chat as before. Please update the header, both the styling and the items. For now, only notes. We'll add more later. I got a typo, but I think it will be fine. And now, sorry for all the switching, by the way. I know it can be annoying. And here for next, I'll say, please add a header that has only the notes route for now. Okay, so we'll do that. Difference of TanStack start, TanStack router query. The difference is TanStack start. Can you please stay open? TanStack start is the full stack framework for React, an alternative to Next.js. TanStack router is just the router, which you can use in a single page application. So you could use it instead of React router, for example. The difference is that TanStack start, for example, gives you this server function thing, which is not in TanStack router. Basically, TanStack start gives you all the server-side stuff. That makes it full stack. TanStack router is TanStack start minus the server-side stuff, you could say. TanStack query is a library for fetching data, for replacing use effect, you could say, for data fetching. You can use TanStack query with TanStack start, but you don't have to, because when using TanStack start, you can use that loader, which I mentioned before. But if you wanted to poll for data, fetch data every second or so, you could do that with TanStack query. You can use that. It's a data fetching library. You can use it totally without TanStack start in any React project, also without TanStack router, but you can also use it with those libraries. So I hope that helps. Yeah. Okay. For a licensed project, what I choose, Next or TanStack Start? I had a TurboPack. Well, I would probably go with Next if it's any commercial project or anything like that, and you don't feel like getting into this brand new framework, TanStack Start, which is not even stable yet, to put it like this. But I will say my experience with TanStack Start, even though it may seem a bit different today, but my experience with it has been pretty good. So I would use it for production applications any day, but I don't want to recommend that to anybody else who then might be frustrated that some things might still be buggy or not work the way you want them to work. The Hono framework, by the way, I know. I'm not sure if I'll make a course on it, but I think Hono is a pretty cool Bun framework. Makes building REST APIs, for example, with Bun really, really enjoyable. Waiting for the Laravel course. By the way, many thanks for all the kind messages, reading them all. Yeah, so thank you so much. And regarding a Laravel course, not planned. Golang course I have. What operating system am I using? I'm using macOS. I have not used Linux as a main system in many years. I would like to give it a try again, but then again, I don't really have time for it. So yeah. But yeah, just macOS it is. Okay, so back to the apps. Now we have our TanStack app here and the Next.js app. Now as a next step, of course, we want to make sure that we can add nodes. And for that, I'll try to use TipTap because I want to have a rich text editor. TipTap, in case you don't know, is exactly that. It's a library that makes building rich text editors in your web apps a breeze. It supports all kinds of frameworks and libraries. You can also use it with vanilla JavaScript, and therefore, in the end, you can use it in any project. But of course, you can also use it with React, and you can build editors like this. So this is interactive here, and you see I can make things bold, strike through. So we have this rich text editor. And behind the scenes, as an output, what we get is JSON in the end. So the user sees the rich text editor and can interact with it as it can with Microsoft Word. But we, as a developer, we get some JSON output, which we can store in the database and then render in any way we want. That is how it works. So yeah, that is essentially the format we get as a developer. That is what we get from the user's input, and that is what we can store in the database, for example, and then we can write our own logic to render this as React components. And I want to build a rich text editor with TipTap, and therefore first we'll install it. So I will run this install command here to install the React library. Prose Mirror is basically a library TipTap is using under the hood. And the starter kit so that we can easily add these basic rich text styling options like bold, italic, and so on. So what I'll do here in my TanStack project, I'll run bun install, copy this and run it here. And then in the next project, I'll do the same. Install that and then spin up the dev server again. Also, and of course, here in TanStack start, that's the first step. The next step is to actually integrate it. And the cool thing is we can use hooks and components from the TipTap package to add that editor. But I will try to let AI do that, and we'll see if that works. I've done it before, it worked, so that of course means it will probably not work today. This is the TanStack application, and so we're building a notes taking app. I now want you to add a rich text editor built with TipTap, already installed, in the editor route. Here are the React tip tap quick start docs to kind of point it into the right direction. Tip tap React. I like to use these XML tags here. Not sure if they really help that much. Also use context 7 and web search to do more research on the tip tap and the tip tap and TanStack start docs to correctly implement this editor into this app. So I'll again let it make a plan, and then the same here for Next.js, though of course here it's in the editor page route, the tip tag docs, and here of course it's a Next.js, so we want to point it at that and also let it make a plan. And with that, it should hopefully be able to generate something meaningful. Hey Max, just wanted to thank you for all the educational content. A lot of it has helped me immensely. Hope you have a great day. Thank you so much. And again, hey, thank you all so much. So many kind messages, means a lot to me. So yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, reading some comments about Turbo Pack here. Indeed, Next.js used to be super slow in development. With Turbo, it's faster. In my experience, it was really horrible with Webpack in the past. In bigger apps or even medium-sized apps, it was super slow. Does TipTap support React 17? I don't know. It works with the latest version. If it works with older versions, I'm not sure. I wouldn't bet on it. What are context 7, context 6? Context 7 is a MCP. Context 7 is a MCP you can add to your AI tools. I added it to Cursor, and it's essentially an MCP that exposes a tool to the AI that allows it to easily search documentation for all kinds of libraries. So it makes it a bit easier for the AI to find the documentation for TanStack start and stuff like that. So here it, for example, did some research using context 7 on tip-tap component menus, as it seems. And this extra context, of course, helps reduce the danger of the AI hallucinating. So let's take a look at the plan. This is the, what is this? This is the TanStack application. So the plan is we need to handle tip-tap properly. Yeah, we must do it on the client side. Optionally wrap. Yeah, I think we should do that. Wrap with TanStack. I actually don't know if TipTap is, how does it work with server-side rendering? You need to use immediately render option and set it to false. Okay, so that is in line with what the AI got from the docs, which makes sense because I shared that article with it. Features to include, bold, italic, strike, heading, code inline, sounds good. Yeah, that sounds good. Styling. Okay, yeah, looks like a good plan. Let's do that. So that's working. And now for Next.js here, also immediately render false. Yep. Use client. We need that for Next.js because TipTap is, of course, happening on the client side. This entire editor is about the client, the user interacting with it. So that must be a client-side component here because we're using a hook and we can't use hooks in React Server components. So that also looks good. Let's start building here too. So the AI is now working in both applications, giving me some time to look at the chat. The cursor theme I'm using here, what's my theme? That's a good question. That's Capuchin Mocha. I think it's an extra theme I installed from the extension store. What do you think about Elysia.js? Looks interesting, haven't used it. I'm a big fan of bun frameworks like Hono, and Hono can actually also be used with Node.js, but it works particularly well with bun. And I think the same is probably true for Alicia. I will say the docs are beautiful. It's on the long list of things I would like to explore. There's just so much stuff on it that time's the main issue. Yeah. Since Udemy is merging, will the courses purchased on Udemy remain available lifetime, or do we need to pay? I have no idea. I don't work at Udemy, and unfortunately, I have no other information than everybody else has. I would love to have more, and I would share it, but I don't. Been learning from you Udemy days, literally learned React from you, which is my bread and butter. Many thanks, Max. Many thanks to you. And as always, or as I said before, all of you here, so many nice messages. I'm not just saying it. It does mean a lot to me. Reading all that is so amazing, and you're all amazing. So thank you so much. What about C# or Java Udemy course? Do you have a plan for that? If anything, C#. It's been, I guess, 15 years, 12 years since I last worked with Java. But it's not planned. The C# course is also not planned for the near future. What kind of apps do you think should a dev build nowadays to add value to the resume? I mean, stuff like e-commerce apps and so on are always good. And now with all the AI stuff, of course, building AI wrappers, image generation apps, maybe chatbots where users can add their own knowledge bases and so on. So stuff like that, I think, can also be interesting apps to build nowadays. Okay, so we're done here. This is the TanStack app here, and we can see that in this index.tsx file, the /editor page, it added a bunch of imports, added a check if the editor is set up. If it's not set up, it's showing some fallback here. And then we got a bunch of functions for handling the user interacting with the toolbar, I guess. And then here it has a toolbar, which it renders. And then it has the editor certainly somewhere. Here's the editor. Yeah. Okay, so that I think looks good. Added some styles too. And for Next.js, it's also done. Here, also the tip-tab editor is a new component it built. We got a type error in there, is possibly null. If not, editor return null. So why? We should never reach this point here. I guess technically the way functions are handled. So, yeah. I'll just quickly, I mean, probably these functions will never get called if the editor is null, but I'll fix it like this. Okay. Let's take a look, shall we? A button to go there would be nice. Also add a button to the header, or actually a link, of course, to the notes page to go to the editor to add a new node. And I could add it myself. I just asked the AI because I want to have a nice looking button and I don't want to type the styling code myself here. Cursor versus anti-gravity. Which one is your choice? I only played with anti-gravity when it was released, and back then it was pretty buggy. I'm happy with Cursor. I'm also using Claude Code a lot on other projects, so I haven't visited I haven't taken another look at anti-gravity. Yeah. So this here is the Next.js app. This is the TanStack app, Next.js new node. That's my editor, TanStack. Got a brief error flashing there. Okay, probably just the dev server reloading. That's the editor here. For next, I'll say make the editor taller. Right now, it's just one line. I'd like it to fix that. I will say I don't hate the styling it found here for TanStack. It does not look like the typical AI apps, which is quite nice. Okay, now the editor is bigger here too. So now let's see. This is a test. Let's make this a header. Does this work? Make this bold. This is italic. So that works. And then let's add some code like script const a equals max. And let's paste this over here. Yeah. So looks like the editor is working. The next question is if we can save that. Is this live stream going to be saved? Yes, it is, by the way. And also, I'll come back to the other questions, no worries. The live stream will stay online on this channel. In the past, I used to upload it to another channel, but now it will just stay here. Okay. So now, next step is we want to save that to the database. And for doing that, before we implement it, let's again take a look at the docs. With TanStack, because this is about comparing the two, right? And we saw how data is loaded. I explained that. Now, how are we going to save data? With TanStack start, I mentioned before, we have these server functions, which we create with create server function. We can use them in a loader, as I explained before, to load data, but we can also use them to store data because these server functions cannot just be called in the loader. You can call them from anywhere, essentially. You can also call them from inside your event handlers. So in my TanStack application on the editor page, we could add, excuse me, we could add a save or a handle save function here, and then probably do some validation that the editor is not empty, for example. And then thereafter, we can call a server function. So let me switch the sidebar position again so that we can work on the file system here. We can add, we have our nodes server TS file here already. Let me actually accept all these changes. We got the node server file where we have this get nodes function. Now, of course, we can also export a create node function, and this suggestion looks good, I guess, though I will change it a bit. No, it's not entirely correct. What you can do with those server functions is you can also validate. Here in documentation, we see it. We can use sort, for example, and we can use input validator, set up a sort schema, and pass that to input validator. And that will then automatically throw an error and return it to the client side, where we then can show an error message if validation fails. And otherwise, this data thing here, which is automatically received in the handler function, which is the actual code that will run on the server, will have this shape. So we get automatic type inference here. Yeah, so that's what we can do. For that, of course, I need to add sort as a first step here in this TanStack start application. And then I'll import C, and I'll set up my node schema. And yeah, I want to have a title and a content. Kind of doesn't make sense to define it here as well. But I'll keep it for fetching the nodes here. And then we add input validator, and we can pass our node schema here. And the validation will be handled automatically, as I mentioned. And then here, we actually destructure data, and that will then be an object of that shape, which is pretty convenient. And then we can insert this into the nodes table in my dbts file. I'm creating this nodes table. The ID will be set automatically. By the way, this is technically not needed for SQLite. It will automatically increment anyways. But yeah, this is the shape. It wants title and content. Content is this JSON. And JSON, of course, is just text. So we can store this. And we store the JSON here, which is this string. That's the idea. We could be a bit more elaborate on the schema here, but this should be fine. So that should allow us to store this, and that's how we do it in TanStack start. Now for Next.js, that of course is different. in Next.js, when we want to mutate data, we can use server functions. Server functions are a React feature, but technically a React feature that's mostly available in Next.js to this day. And these are functions that have use server inside of them, this directive. Or you put use server at the top of a file, and then all the functions in that file become server functions. And the special thing about server functions is that even if you define them in a component, or if you call them from inside a component, even if it's a client component marked with use client, the code in this function will only run on the server, just as the code in here in this server function in TanStack. In both cases, we got code that only runs on the server, and in both cases, we can call them from the client side, and behind the scenes, the framework will do some magic and will basically send a request to the server. It will create an endpoint on the server and send the request for us. So data mutations are handled with React server functions in the case of React, and here it's just server functions, TanStack server functions, not the official React ones. So that's maybe important for here. We need the use server directive, right? Because we're dealing with React server functions, and here we need nothing of that kind, because that is really just this server function concept of TanStack start. So that's that. With that out of the way, I'll copy this page and again let AI help me a little bit here. Bring that over to the other side so that you can see it. New chat. This is the TanStack app. So I'll say we're building, and I could also create some rule files so that I don't have to repeat it all the time, but I'll just do it here. We're building a note-taking app with TanStack start. And now we want to make sure notes can be saved from the editor page. Use server functions as described. Server functions, I actually created one already. See notes server, and also see official docs, TanStack docs here, TanStack docs. Also use context 7 and web search for further docs lookup. Make sure to handle validation errors on the client, including errors from the server side, and show an appropriate message. After success, redirect to the notes page. So that's, I'll let it make a plan. And now for Next.js, I'll copy in the same prompt. But of course here we're using Next.js. And the route is the editor page. Use React server functions. And therefore, of course, I'll delete that. Explore the React and Next.js docs via context 7 and web search to understand how to do that. Make sure to handle validation. Yeah, and let it make a plan. So, time for some questions. How to stay motivated in programming while being unemployed? Because I feel bad after not program anything for weeks. Well, obviously a horrible situation. Regarding the motivation part, I think the only thing you can do, if you don't want to leave the programming sector, of course, is build projects for your resume. Take the time to dive into new technologies, build stuff with AI, with help of AI, learn how to get good at using AI like Cursor, Claude Code, whatever it is. Because these are skills that ultimately will probably be important for finding a job. That's all I can say for that, I guess. If you had to use only one between Cursor and Claude Code for a production grade project, which one would it be? I think it would be cursor because I prefer having an IDE, but it's super, super close. Yeah, but probably cursor then. I have a new project. What should I use? Next.js or TanStack? I already have a Golang backend. If you already have a backend and you just need a frontend, I would probably just build a single page application with React and Vite, for example, and then add routing with React Router or TanStack Router. Having a full stack app with Next.js or TanStack Start does not make a lot of sense if you already have a backend REST API, I would say. Just want to say thank you for the React full course. Helped me a lot build my foundation, front-end web. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and super, super happy the React course was helpful. Means a lot to me. Thank you so very much. Your course was insanely helpful. Yeah, and thank you too, Mirko Masa and Buzzy. Thank you both so much. Do you feel dumb since starting AI? No, but I will say, and it's gotten better. I used to be in a situation where I tended to use AI too much, to the point where I had entire projects where I didn't really understand the code base. And that's the part where, yeah, you could feel dumb, you don't understand the code base, and you feel your skills kind of disappear slowly. And now I think I got a good mixture of steering AI, letting it do its thing, but planning ahead, reviewing the code, writing some snippets myself, and I think that's a good path that works out pretty well for me. So yeah, thank you so much everybody for the nice messages. Okay, let's take a look at the plan. This is the next application here. I mean, these charts are always nice. I don't spend too much time looking at them, but let's see: client component, form action, server action, validate, show an error message if invalid, otherwise SQLite database redirect. Looks good. Create node function in the libdbts. Okay, yeah. And then it creates a separate server action in an actions TS file. Okay. And then it plans on use action state. That's okay. That's good. Yeah. So it's a hook by React you can use for handling form submissions and validation. Use action state used to be called use form state, but it's a hook that's built into React and that you can use with server actions, server functions. So I like that. Yeah, I think that looks good. Let's build it. And now for TanStack. No title input. Yes, it's right. We have no title input yet. I didn't check if it is asking for a title in Next.js. We'll see. We have a server function, so it will use that. It will store the title separately from a separate input field. That's fine. Error, save button. So a lot of manual state handling here. We could be using TanStack query here, for example, also for mutations. But then it uses use server function, which is good because that is something you learn in the TanStack docs, the TanStack start docs, that you can prepare a server function for being called from a component by wrapping it with use server function, which is a hook provided by TanStack start. So I like that it picked that up. Error handling and redirects. Server functions can throw errors that are handled automatically when called from route lifecycles or components using use server functions. I did not want to highlight that. Okay. So we can throw a redirect and that should be picked up automatically. And is it planning to use that? No. It plans on navigating manually. So maybe we should just point it at that. Let's say embrace TanStack starts built-in redirection capabilities. See docs. And then I'll paste this and we'll see if it adjusts its plan. But other than that, this is looking good, I think. we can definitely do it like this. Handle save, managing a bunch of state here, and then ultimately redirecting would do the job. But now it's revising the plan, and we'll see how it changes it. I think it now plans to redirect in the server function. Yep. Throw redirect. Redirect handled by server function. Okay, so let's build this and let's see if it works. The Next.js app is already done, but first some questions and comments. Where was I? TypeScript course was helpful for me. Love from Bangladesh. Thank you so much, Has Gaming. Super happy to hear the course was helpful. Thank you all so much, as always. Should we use junior developers? Should we use as junior developers use tools like VS Code to enhance our skills instead of vibe coding? You should definitely not vibe code. I think vibe coding is really, really bad. Especially if you're a less experienced developer, because you learn nothing about the code. Even if you're not just vibe coding, you're not learning a lot. So you really have to like be disciplined to go into the code, to go into the docs, to learn stuff on your own still. And with vibe coding, the danger of not learning anything is definitely high. Greetings from Brazil. Learned a lot from your Angular course in 2020. Thank you so much. Happy to hear you learned a lot from that. I'm starting React now. I have about 5 months of free time. Should I accept a job in the meantime as a junior web dev? I think if you can get a job right now as a junior web dev, that is a good thing because it's really hard. So if you have an offer, I would definitely consider taking it. Yeah. If I would start learning programming today, where would I go? Cybersecurity, DevOps, web dev. Cybersecurity, definitely an important topic, especially with all the AI code that's being generated, I would argue. But ultimately, you have to go with what's interesting to you. DevOps, strong field. Web dev has seen better days, for sure. At the same time, web dev is the thing where you can build amazing applications and instantly see something. And now with AI, there are more opportunities there than ever. Yeah, so I would go with what's most interesting to you. The best chances might have cybersecurity, but then again, that's not my strong field, so I might be wrong here. A Ketamine subscription has the same update frequency. What additional things will I get? The update frequency is the same. If we release an update on Udemy, you of course also get it in the subscription. There are some exclusive courses in subscription, like the data structure algorithm courses. And of course, the subscription gives you instant access to the entire catalog as long as you have the active subscription and you don't have to buy every course you're interested in manually. And of course, with all the Udemy developments, there might be more exclusive stuff in the future. That's definitely also something that might happen. Is my mindset true? Next.js should only be used if we want great SEO. I don't want to use Next.js for full stack apps. If you want SEO, if you just need SEO for like a marketing page, I would also consider using Astro.js, by the way, which is a pretty amazing framework for static sites or for content heavy sites. I would consider that too. But yeah, if you're building a site that does not need server-side rendering, for example, then there is no reason, or then you could definitely consider not using Next.js. You can just use React with React Router and so on. Yeah. Okay, yeah, let's take a look, shall we? I think TanStack is also done. Yep, and we'll see if it works. So this is the Next.js application. So this is a test. This is a test. And let's also add some code, some made up code. And this is a short test article. This is bold. Whoops. Bold. And some inline code. Okay, Let's copy that. Let's click save. We're redirected. Here's my node. Viewing it doesn't work yet. We'll handle this later because I haven't implemented the page yet. Now for TanStack start, test, save, node's title. Well, this sounds like a job for AI. Getting this error, is this the TanStack app? Yeah, getting this error when trying to save. I think it might already have a node. Since it's a not null constraint error, it looks like it already has a node with that title. Or not? We'll see. Okay, now this works. Remove all the dummy nodes, please. And of course, I want to test if I can also store richer documents. So once it's done removing those dummy documents here, I mean, that's kind of the annoying part, that it decided to add some to the database. The good thing is that since it's a SQLite database, we can simply go to the database file and delete it if I find it. Where is the NotesDB? Where is my... Here it is. So we can delete that and just restart the dev server to be safe. And now create a new node, test. This is a test. Let's make this a heading. This is bold, some code, script, const name equals max. Save this. Okay, so that's working. Now, of course, I want to have the detail pages too. So the way this works is, I said it before, in TanStack start, you have dynamic path segments by adding this $sign here, so that we can have like a node ID as the actual element in the URL, and then this route will get loaded. And in there, we now want to fetch the data for that ID. So again, just as before, we can create a server function and then use the loader to load that node. And for Next.js, we have dynamic path segments with those square brackets. And then we're building React server components so we can fetch from right inside of them. So therefore, I'll open a new chat and say we're building, that's the Next.js app now, we're building a node-taking app. We now need to implement the node detail page, and that is this one, yeah. Use the RSC to fetch the node with the loaded ID. Use context 7 and web search to explore Next.js docs to learn how to best fetch data. Important, we're using tip-tap as a rich editor. Look up its JSON schema, i.e. how user entered content is stored via context 7 web search. And you don't need to add that all the time, by the way. This is just increasing the chances that the AI will look it up. And render the content in a nice way using JSX and proper CSS styling. Tailwind. Okay, so that's my prompt for the AI here. And then here in the TanStack app, I'll paste in the same, but of course, this is now this page here. We're building it with TanStack start, and then use a server function and the loader to fetch the node. And I wanted to take a look at the other route and the official TanStack start docs for that. So yeah, we're using TipTap, and let's go. Okay, questions. I'm creating a social media website for the past 6 months, but I didn't choose React since AI said it's heavy. React, of course, you're always loading in the React library. If you're using something like Next.js, you're loading that library in addition. And that's why I meant something like Astro.js, for example, gives you way more lightweight pages and therefore might be worth a look. How did I learn TanStack? Did you practice with projects manually first, then use AI? Yeah, I practiced manually with documentation and projects, and then brought AI into the mix, essentially. And even when using AI, I mean, here I'm kind of speeding it up a bit, but when using AI, what I often do is I go to the documentation, find the relevant context, the relevant articles myself, and paste them into the prompts. I'm just not doing this here to save some time, since it should be able to do that with web search and context 7. But that also helps you with learning, of course, because when you find the right documentation yourself, you, of course, kind of read it or at least skim over it. And that also is better than nothing, I guess. Would you choose Go for any kind of coming new projects? I would choose it. I just don't have any projects where I will use it right now, because for most of them, it's easier for me to just build a full stack app with TanStack or Next.js, since I use React. I can just be very productive with that stack. If I had like a super performance critical application, I would absolutely consider Go for that too. Do you know about the state of QA with AI? Is it hot or is it cold? Quality assurance, that is, I guess. AI can generate tests, and being non-prod, that's more acceptable. It's definitely an important thing. I mean, code reviewing is a super important skill also for the future, I guess. Writing good tests is in theory a good skill. I don't know how much it will be valued by employers, because AI can generate tests, and you have to be super careful with that. AI is good at writing tests. It's also good at writing tests that are fine-tuned for the code it wrote, which kind of defeats the purpose. So actually writing good tests would be a very valuable skill, but I definitely see companies saying, we don't need that. AI can do it. So that's why I'm not sure what the right answer there is, to be honest. What's the difference between Node and Bun? Both are runtimes that allow you to run JavaScript anywhere, including on the server. Bun tends to have better performance. They claim they do, and benchmarks show it too. Bun has certain nice extra features built in, like the SQL client, the SQLite client I'm using here. I don't need to bring in an extra package. But Node.js got much better over the years, has many features like TypeScript support built in too, and of course has been around for longer, is not owned by Anthropic, so that might give you more stability or safety, regarding the future. But I like using Bun a lot. Claude CodeStream, yeah, why not? Which plan purchased from Cursor? I have the $200 one because I'm using it a lot. And I recently, for example, released a big update for this AI for devs course I mentioned before. Or did I mention it? So this course here, which covers Cursor and GitHub Copilot. So I really need those tokens. So I have the $200 course. Why do you use the best but also most expensive model in this project? Because I wanted the best results, decrease the chances of messing up, and simply, to be honest, because it's selected. And between reading and planning ahead and trying to not mess things up, I just didn't look which model. But I probably would use it anyways, because it's a great model. I want great results. Yeah. So, saves content. We got a question. Saves content using get, you mentioned tip tips. Oh yeah, we're getting HTML. Let's go JSON. And same. Let's do that. Maybe I'll regret it because now it'll mess up everything, but we'll see. Yeah. How is the stream going? We had a rough start, I'd say, with some weird TanStack start errors, which I, of course, didn't have before, but on stream we have them. But now I hope it's going well. I hope it's interesting. We're making progress. Almost done with the app and got a nice comparison going here, which hopefully is helpful. And hopefully I was able to answer some questions. So, yeah, I hope you're all liking the stream. I often use tests as kind of a documentation for the LLM. Yeah, and that is actually a pretty good way of using tests. I mean, test-driven development, where you write the tests first, can make even more sense with AI. Not saying that I'm doing it, to be very honest, because I never was into test-driven development, but mostly probably because I never properly learned it or used it. But in theory, that, of course, is great, because the more helpful context you can give AI, the more you can steer it, the better. Because AI definitely got better at writing code, but it also is pretty good at picking up what it already sees. And that's also why, if you have some bad code in your project, if AI maybe went down a bad route, it can be hard to get out of that with just AI, because it keeps on seeing that bad code. And even if it tells you, oh, we should fix that, still, in my experience at least, it kind of keeps on picking up that code. So the more context you can give it by adding your own code first, by adding functions, by providing good documentation links or snippets from the documentation, the higher the chances are of producing good results. That is my experience. Okay, so here it's still planning moves. Here it's also still planning moves. So we'll see what we get here. What about this comparison? Is there anything I should add? Data fetching, data mutations, ease of learning, the ecosystem. Oh, that one is wrong here. I explained why it's worse, but I didn't update it. Probably someone wrote this in the chat, but yeah, the ecosystem is absolutely better in Next.js, of course. Maybe something like the stability could be interesting. That's kind of hard to judge, but in my experience, Next.js is relatively stable. It can just be pretty slow, but it's established. Yeah, I mean, with the app router, it's been quite buggy. It's gotten better. Maybe that's 2 pluses here. And for TanStack, for TanStack, it's difficult because obviously we had like this huge weird error at the beginning. Not sure if it was TanStack or BetterAuth or the combination, or maybe me messing something up. It has been pretty stable for me, but I definitely had a bit more bugs with TanStack over the last weeks and months. But to be very fair, and I said it initially, TanStack Start is also still in release candidate phase. So it's not stable yet. So it's allowed to have bugs. And that's important. I don't want to be unfair here. But I would probably say it's a bit less stable, but it's definitely not super unstable. And I have worked a lot with it over the last weeks, essentially without major problems. So yeah, maybe that's 2 pluses. This is 3 pluses here. I don't know. As I said before, this is all subjective here. But yeah, that's probably how I would judge it. Okay, so is my internet gone here, or is Cursor having some problems? Let's switch the model here maybe. Let's try. Continue. Or maybe I shouldn't use another Anthropic model then. Let's try GPT 5.2. And force. Oh, now it's continuing. Okay, good. Have you tried asking to create technical implementation documentation, which includes all the codes? I'm working with a lot of technical implementation documentation and spec files. Not in this project, arguably, but what I like to do is like brainstorm on them together with other tools like ChatGPT or Gemini, so that I don't waste my tokens here. And then once I have a finished draft and I'm happy with it, I will put it into my project and let AI use that as an additional source. And these are all things I plan on sharing. Yeah, in future courses, whatever. So I want to use JSON and render that. And how about Next.js? Here I want to say switch from HTML to JSON, just to make sure that it picked that up, because I didn't see it here. Now it's updating the plan. Yeah, get JSON, that's what I want. Okay. It's doing a lot of updates here. Here it's doing more lookups. Okay. Do you think software quality will improve? Well, no. Actually, I created a video about that today, inspired by a post by the Cursor CEO. And I think software quality is really endangered to become worse now with LLMs, because it definitely seems like less people care about it. And I mean, the trend has been downwards for the last 15 years, so I don't see it get better with large language models. Next.js image component was the simplest. Yeah, that is definitely an asset. Makes rendering responsive images definitely easy, or easier. Okay, so are we getting done here? Yeah, okay, so now I will try using Opus again. Let's see if that works, if we can build it. And I also will quickly delete my database here in the Next.js app again, because I stored the data as HTML. Let's also get started here. I stored the data as HTML, and now I'm switching, so I'll delete the old database. That's the good thing about SQLite. You can just delete it, and it'll be recreated. So yeah, it wants to install that dependency. Won't work in the sandbox. You need to do it outside of the sandbox. No, what? It showed sandbox here. Don't get it. Yeah, it also will need to install it here, I guess. We'll see if it wants to. And then we'll see if that works. Yeah, and I agree. Using like technical specification documents and so on can vastly improve the output and the quality of the output you get from AI. 100%. Interesting that it didn't install that extra tool here in the Next.js application. I'll ask it. Don't you need... My implementation uses a custom renderer. Well, we'll see. I guess we'll see. So let's restart both dev servers, and let's reload Next.js. No node, of course, because I cleared the database. So this is a test. H1 testing. This is bold. Whoops, bold. And some code. So let's use some inline code here. And then also a code block. Okay, copy that. Save it. Go to it. Looks good. Being rendered. Looks good. So Next.js looks decent. I mean, obviously the preview here is not looking good with the JSON. We would have to do something about this, but it works. Now for TanStack start. Test node, paste this in, save this, go there, also looks good. So let's check for errors. No errors here. No errors here. And on this page, also no errors. So that is working. And I guess pretty good. 5 minutes, 7 minutes left. We got the note-taking app done with the rich text editor with some AI usage. And hopefully helpful when it comes to understanding some of the differences. Obviously, you could talk about this forever. The main differences in the end are or the main thing that comes to my mind, that come to my mind, are the ecosystem, the ease of learning obviously matters, maybe a bit less so in the age of AI, but I would say it matters. Data fetching and the general idea. And I think one important takeaway is that Next.js, of course, is the older framework, and it's the one that is more that's using all these React features, which you could argue were added because of Next.js, like React server functions, like React server components. And you don't have that in TanStack Start. You have server functions there, but they're not the official React server functions. They're their own version. You don't have React server components there yet. They will be added. So it depends on if you need it, if you want it, or maybe it's an argument for you that they don't have it because of all the security vulnerabilities and you want to use TanStack Start for that reason. Both frameworks are great in my opinion. I've worked heavily with both. I like them both. I know Next.js can be slow. The caching can be super confusing. I mentioned it in the beginning. But it's well established. You can build amazing apps with it. There are tons of production apps out there powered by Next.js. TanStack Start is an release candidate, will hopefully be stable soon. And I like working with it. It feels a bit leaner, a bit more, a bit fresher, I would say. It could just be the shiny thing, of course. I don't know, but I really enjoy working with it. Everything, or for me, everything seems to make sense there. There is no complex caching logic. The docs can be a bit intimidating. They've gotten better, as I mentioned, but still feels a bit like a brain dump. But it all, to me, feels a bit simpler with TanStack Start than with Next.js. With Next.js, you have to know these different directives. With Next.js, you have these other special instructions that you can add to your files. The file, no, not that. Where is it? Where are they? There are these special instructions you can add to certain files. Yeah. What's it called? Revalidate is one of them, I think. Yeah, like these instructions. So that can be confusing. And it's all related to the caching in the end. Knowing when to add what with which value. That's just something you don't really have here with TanStack Start. And I think that's one of the main reasons why it feels a bit more, a bit easier to me. The inconsistency. You mean between the editor and the custom rendering here? I think overall the results look good. The sides look different, of course, because we have different styling, yeah. If you use SQLite, does it work with Vercel? I'm guessing not. I also guess it's not working because my understanding, and it's been some time since I last hosted something on Vercel, my understanding is that they are essentially pushing your code into functions, edge functions, like AWS Lambda-like functions, and you have no data persistence in there. And since SQLite is really just a file in your project, I don't imagine that works there. I could be wrong though, but I don't think it works there. I would have to look it up though. Which language, TypeScript or Golang, for a solo dev? I want to create backend spots. I think TypeScript is the better choice for the main reason that there are, especially now if you're looking into building bots and so on, and you maybe want to use AI, and maybe you need full stack applications. I mean, it's my ecosystem. I'm working with TypeScript all the time, but for me, it feels like a bit easier to work in that space. AI knows a lot about it. You find plenty of resources, plenty of packages. So that's why my recommendation would be TypeScript. You should give Convex a try. I will. I've heard a lot of amazing things about it. I will definitely give it a try. AI told me that my AI code is better than 95% of agency coding. Well, if AI says it, what would advise juniors that most companies are hiring seniors and give them AI subscriptions? Okay. I'm saying all these since people say AI coding is bad. So, well, I basically have to wrap it up now. Just maybe as the final words related to AI coding. I've said it in essentially all my other videos. I said it in last week's stream, which, by the way, is also still online on this site. I think as a developer, there is no way around AI, and you should use it because you can be vastly more productive with it. And AI can produce good code, especially if you steer it in the right direction. That's, in a nutshell, my take on that. When you do pure vibe coding and you hope that AI gets it right, that can absolutely be fine if you're building your own utility script, stuff like that. But anything that you plan on running in production, where you plan on charging people, not just developers, I wouldn't feel confident in if I wouldn't see the code, if I wouldn't understand the code. You can decide differently, but you'll have to deal with potential bugs or problems or security issues and whatever. Anyways, I enjoyed the stream. I hope you did too. I gotta go. Rough start, but we got there in the end, and I hope it was helpful. I hope it was interesting. And I wish you all a great day, evening, morning, whatever it is for you. And hopefully see you in future streams and videos. And yeah, thanks for joining. Bye-bye.